Hey everybody, welcome to the Angel Week in Review podcast. I'm Jeff Siegel. With me today is Brian Hicks, founder and president of Angel Publishing, and Jason Freert, CEO of Angel Publishing. Welcome to the podcast, guys. Great to have you here.
What's up?
Well, I'll tell you, there's a lot going on today and this week, and I want to jump right into it. The Chinese are hoarding gold. In addition to collecting jade necklaces, islands that don't belong to them, and the world's next generation of engineers and neuroscientists, they're now going after the gold. Check out this headline. Chinese banks run out of gold as soaring prices spark buying frenzy. Brian, you're married into a Chinese family, and you were telling us back in 2005 to start loading up on gold. It was less than $500 an ounce then. We're soon going to hit $3,000 an ounce. What's going on?
Well, it's what I've been saying for the better part of a year is that there's all these factors, geopolitical factors, the war in Ukraine, China saber rattling, inflation. The people are very concerned about the U.S. dollar, about global debt, and the gold has now reasserted itself as the best safe haven asset in the market today, and it's been a safe haven asset for millennia, and it's not going to change anytime soon. So the Chinese are hoarding gold. I don't know about if you know, but the Chinese stock market and the Chinese housing market are in the shitter. And so I just watched a documentary or a news piece the other day where everyday Chinese are opening up bank accounts, and guess what they're buying? They're buying U.S. dollars and they're buying gold. And just before you get off on that, Jeff, you're right. I am married to a Chinese woman, and here's my jade necklace right here. So come get it, bitch.
How much of this you think is like the tariff stuff with Trump though? Because like I was just reading this past week, that the Canadian dollar is like at an all-time the lowest against the U.S. dollar since like 2003. And so, like, are people just worried about Trump? Like, Trump wants a strong dollar, and a strong dollar usually equates to higher gold prices.
I would be buying. You know what? When I started Angel, one of the co-founders of Angel was buying. He was investing heavily in the loonie, the Canadian dollar, because it was, like you just said, it's never been this low since 2003, and he actually made a fortune buying Canadian dollars.
So are you bullish on the loonie again?
I'm bullish on the loonie again, yeah.
Are you really?
Yeah.
Well, even if the Canada becomes the 51st state, then the loonie is probably they're going to have to, peg the loonie to the dollar or something like that. So maybe they'll do like a 1-to-1.
Yeah, I mean the whole argument of the whole argument around buying the Canadian dollar back in 2003 was oil sands was about to explode into a bull market, and the loonie was going to be backed heavily by oil, and I think that's going to happen again. So it's going to be. We are in a natural resource or a commodities super cycle bull market, and right now it's commodities are leading the way. And especially gold. I don't know if our readers know this, our members know this, but the best performing ETF right now for 2025 is a gold ETF. It's the Van Eck Gold ETF. It's up about 25% year to date. So in the past 6 weeks, it's up 25%. Gold stocks, blue chip gold stocks like Newmont, Barrick, Anglo Ashanti, these things are destroying the market. Anglo Gold's up almost 50% for the year for 2025. That's massive, and it's not going to stop anytime soon.
Is there anything happening alongside gold? Like typically when we see gold move, silver moves with it. Is that happening as well?
Yeah, but gold is actually, usually they both move in tandem, but gold is definitely outpacing silver right now. I expect silver to catch up, to sort of contract that gold-silver ratio. But right now, gold is not just a safe haven asset or a hedge against uncertainty. It's now becoming, it's being viewed as the sort of the vanguard of the whole tokenization, asset tokenization movement, and it's going to be part of sort of the stable of coins that are going to be starting to hit the market, along with Tether and USDC and USDT. So there's stable coins that are backed by the US dollar, but there are also stable coins that are backed by gold. And we can talk about this later, Jeff, but unmined gold is the next thing to be heavily tokenized. And that's the next big revolution, I think, in the crypto tokenization market.
Well, what's crazy is I sent this thing to Brian last night, and I don't know, how far you want to go down the rabbit hole, but the Doge led by Elon has been, pretty much making headlines every day. And so the theory that was floating around, which I think is pretty accurate, is how far is Doge going to go, and are they eventually going to lead to doing things that have been sort of threatened or wondered for years, like auditing the gold reserves of the U.S., like auditing Fort Knox, or auditing the Fed. And what does that mean for physical gold? You know what I mean? Because we're talking about the Chinese hoard, like a lot of this stuff we're talking about now is physical gold. And so when you bring it back to the tokenization aspect, you're going to need an actual one-to-one public blockchain record of the gold, right? You can't just say, hey, yeah, Fort Knox, we got this amount of gold here or whatever. Like, no, show me the records, right? That's what Elon's saying. Show me the actual transactions, or open up the vault and show me that you have X number of gold bars. Because I think a lot of people are going to be like, oh shit, there's not as much gold as they said it was. And
Ron Paul's been saying that for a long time.
Yeah. I mean, this is what all the libertarians have been waiting for. And I think people thought Trump was going to do it in his first time around, but I think now he's just like, all right, like let's do it. Let's open up the books.
Well, check this out. I'm not sure how many people are talking about this, but the U.S. government is the biggest owner of gold, okay, around the world. And on our books, because the U.S. government has been buying it for gold for decades, the average cost of our gold is like $42 an ounce, and it's on the books as $42 an ounce. So all Doge has to do is say, okay, we're going to revalue that gold to its current price, and we automatically will add like $750 billion to the U.S. government assets just by that one accounting trick.
Yeah, and is that maybe that's what goes into the sovereign wealth fund?
Probably. Yeah, I mean this is the craziest I've seen it in a long time in terms of just U.S. government, just the things that are going on, and it's almost a whirlwind. It's almost overwhelming, and you can see how the Democrats are just like they've been blindsided by what Trump and Elon Musk are trying to achieve.
Yeah, I think that goes for some Republicans as well, because these guys have known what's going on has been going on for years, and for a very long time. I think when Trump first came into office the first time, I think they thought they had a handle on him and they could keep him from going off, doing things that they didn't want him to do, and I think they were successful in that. And that's not going to happen now. At least that's how it looks.
Yeah, he figured it out, and he's like, I can't trust any of these fuckers.
Right.
So I got to bring in these people that aren't entrenched to dig in and be like, well, where is the gold? Where's this money going? You know what I mean? And so you're right. Like both sides, I think, are getting scared. Absolutely. And so it's just the beginning. But I think like going back to the gold piece, we've been talking about this for the better part of a week, Brian. It's like, where do you put yourself? Like all this fast breakneck news about AI and all the stuff that's happened in the government, like, where do you, like, you go back to basics, right? And the basics is actually physical gold, right? Something that hasn't changed and, doesn't seem to be on deck to change. I don't think it's going to go down, right?
Well,
Like,
it's never gone. Well, I mean, it could go down, but it's never gone to zero. It's the one asset that's never gone to zero. And again, the view of gold is changing. It's no longer just a hedge or a store of value. It's actually being used as a financial revolution, a disruptor. Because once you start tokenizing gold, verified gold that's in the ground, if you can verify the gold resources that are in the ground and you can tokenize it, that unleashes something like almost $6 trillion worth of stranded value that nobody has had access to. But once you start to tokenize it, and gold mining companies are sitting on, probably a billion. Well, there's 2 billion. There's over 2 billion ounces of verified gold resource that has yet to be mined. If we were to tokenize all that, it would unleash a tidal wave of value and wealth that we haven't seen in a very long time.
We're definitely going to do a separate podcast on this, because this is a huge, big picture thing that we're going to see play out over the course of 2025. We can't just dedicate 10 minutes to it. This is so much bigger than that. Brian, when you first started talking about the tokenization of gold, and really the tokenization of everything, when you start putting the pieces of that puzzle together, you realize just how wealthy this country is, and how we've not been able to utilize that wealth. And that's all going to change this year. Most of which is going to come from the tokenization of everything. I know everything sounds a lot, but I really believe you can tokenize everything.
You can. And if you look at America, if you look at the United States of America as a ledger, you have assets and you have liabilities. What are our liabilities? Well, right now we're about $37 trillion of national debt. It's even worse than that. It's about $90 trillion when you factor in future obligations. However, if we were to value the U.S. as like you would value a publicly traded stock, a company, our assets are somewhere in the neighborhood of $280 to $320 trillion. But a lot of that value is trapped, it's stranded. And if Musk and Trump and the crypto czar figure out a way to untrap it, a lot of our problems go away.
Yeah,
Is
and
the
I
US
foresee
broke?
that
Is the U.S. broke? I don't think we're broke, dude. I think we're swimming in potential wealth.
I'm very, very, very excited about how this is all playing out. This is, I've been an angel for 20 years, and I think this is the biggest thing we've ever seen in terms of wealth creation.
And the market likes it. I mean, right now, gold, all the major indices are trading within, a whisker of record highs. And gold today is trading within, less than 1% of a record high. And it's just, I just get used to hearing the phrase, we're at record highs. So we're gonna
I love it. I love it. Okay, let's move on from Chinese gold to the golden age of cinema, or in this case, porn on Twitter. There's a new movement on Twitter to get Uncle Elon to ban porn on the platform. Senator Mike Lee, D-list actor with the great hair, Kevin Sorbo, and about 100,000 Twitter users and Russian bots are posting ban porn on X. While I don't personally use Twitter for porn, I'm more of a OnlyFans kind of guy, I don't think Uncle Elon's going to go for it. In 2022, he bought Twitter for about $44 billion. Last year, Fidelity valued it at $9.4 billion. That's a decline of nearly 80% from its original purchase price. And no matter how you slice it, porn is profitable. And I would even go a step further to suggest that Elon set up an adult-only content option as a way to placate the morality police while monetizing smut. But here's my question. If Elon were to ban porn from X, can we still consider X to be a platform where censorship is frowned upon?
Yeah, I don't think so. I think you probably have to look, they should be able to figure out how to censor it, right? Like Google does, they have like safe search. The thing that's kind of annoying mostly about it as a user of X/Twitter is like you'll just go on like a thread and like just random like pictures will pop up like, oh, do my own, like they should be able to fix that and censor it, and the people that want to do that do it, and then the people that don't. But I don't know. All the other platforms don't have it on there, so and they
Yeah.
do just fine. So
Well, I have to say that in the last year or so, I've been getting a lot of people following me that have 0 followers, and they're
yeah,
generally women with huge breasts. So I
yeah,
don't.
and it's just it's just bots driven it. So I think that's the hardest part of figuring out growing Twitter is not having the censorship, but also like you know getting rid of all the bots because no one it's just terrible, terrible.
So
Yeah.
just have within X sort of a platform that's triple X, XXX.
Love
There
it.
we go. There we go.
I don't get that though. I mean, like, there's so much free porn out there. Like, I don't get it.
Well, it's funny because some of these on Twitter, people were saying we got to keep the porn away from the kids, and I'm around kids all the time. I have kids, I have nieces, nephews, and none of them use Twitter. Like for them, Twitter's like that's what old people use. So I don't think there's a lot of kids on Twitter looking for porn.
Look, I'm old enough that when my parents went to bed around 11 o'clock on a Saturday night, the first thing we used to do was turn on Cinemax, remember what we used to call that?
Skinamax.
Get a max.
So it's just the next evolution. Kids are definitely always going to find a way to find it. So
Yeah, I would think the more serious thing is just trying to identify, like predators on there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and those are the people that aren't gonna have, you know what I mean? Like, aren't gonna be posting pictures of whatever. Like, I feel like they can censor that no problem. Or I shouldn't say censor it. Like, keep that away from the people. Like, you just have, like Google does it. You have safe search, and then there's like a blended version. And then, if you like turn on that, then you can see it. But by default, maybe that's not on there. And so, or maybe you have to be like a verified user that's like 18 plus, and then that can be on there. But
In other words, there are plenty of solutions other than just banning something outright. And anytime you try to ban something outright, it always bites you in the ass.
yeah, but
Yeah.
I don't know if anybody's gonna be like picketing, like outside of the
No.
X offices
No.
because they're like not showing
Right.
naked girls on Twitter.
Right.
I don't know. I would like so.
No, I get it. All right, guys, I didn't want to talk about this. You brought this whole Twitter X porn thing in, and it's just disgusting. I don't like smut. You're disgusting me, both of you. Kidding. We do have serious things to talk about. Like this week, Jerome Powell made a prediction that there will come a time when mortgages are impossible to get in parts of the U.S. He said, if you fast forward 10 or 15 years, there are going to be regions of the country where you can't get a mortgage, noting that banks and insurance companies have been pulling out of coastal and fire-prone areas they deem too high risk. Is there an opportunity here? People are always going to live near the beach or up in the mountains. Maybe at some point only the rich will be able to live in these places because they don't have to get a mortgage and can just pay cash. Jason, you are a homeowner with a riding tractor mower and a mortgage payment. What's your take?
I don't have a riding mower, but I mean, I think it comes down to deregulation, right? They have to. The reason the prices have gotten so high is there's all these regulations about what you can and cannot build in the areas, right? So, I mean, maybe that's to the states, I guess, but maybe there needs to be some sort of federal thing in there. But what ends up happening, and I see it where I'm at, like in the western part of the county I'm in is more rural, And anytime they talk about building more stuff, people are like, no, no, you know what I mean? And it's like, once people get locked into their spot, they're like, no one else can come in here.
Right.
No one. So there has to be some regulation there, and there has to be just maybe some incentives to like build up some of these like sort of mid-tier cities and towns, in terms of creating environments where you can have lower cost housing. But yeah, I mean, the beaches are always going to be a prime target. And yeah, I mean, like, I don't know, like, you aren't owed a beachfront property, right? Like, I mean, maybe you think you are, but like,
Well, there's always going to be people that are. But I guess what I was saying is that there's always going to be people that want to live in those places, and they're going to find a way to make it happen. So I'm just wondering, is there an opportunity here, maybe in companies that are building specialty materials that can withstand fire, withstand flooding? Um, Maybe there's a financing deal here where you have private companies taking on the risk more so than an insurance company.
Well, I mean, look, one of the first things, so, it's no secret that I have a house on the coast in the Gulf of Mexico, Longboat Key, Florida.
wait, on where?
Gulf of America. I'm
Got
sorry.
Okay, great.
Um, for, I don't know, 25 miles where on the coast where I am, we got hit pretty hard. Within a month, one of the very first things that happened to a lot of the coastal housing that got hit was there were what we call vulture capitalists came in and started offering people, I guess maybe 50 cents on the dollar for the value of their house or their property. So the fact that there were vulture capitalists coming in and just trying to gobble up as much property as they could on Siesta Key, Longboat Key, Anna Maria Island tells me that look, natural disasters have the same sort of memory as a hangover. You drink heavily one night, and the next one you're like, oh, I'm never going to drink again. A week, maybe a month later, you're like, okay, I can handle it again. It's going to be the same thing with
Yeah.
this hurricane. We haven't had Longboat Key has never gotten hit by a hurricane like this in over 50 years. And it might be another 50 years before another one hits it again. So give it some time. Financing, mortgage companies will be back. They already are back. Nothing's happening in Longboat Key. So
Yeah, and as far as the materials and stuff like that, I think it's gonna be it's gonna depend on the area, right? Like, I mean, in California, yeah, maybe you want to have some like fireproof stuff ready. You got it. Already, people in Florida build, don't have basements and build with like concrete structures. Like, that's already kind of a thing. But I do think like the insurance market just needs to play out, right? It's just a cost of how it is. Like, if insurance is too high, then the cost of the home is going to lower, and then people just won't buy them if it doesn't make sense. So they just need to let
insurance
the market
companies
play
have
out.
to be allowed to price risk in.
Of course, yeah.
And that's what happened in Los Angeles from the fires. That's why they pulled out, because the insurance companies weren't allowed to price in the risk. And so they got squeezed out, or they just left voluntarily.
Yeah, they just left. They're like, look, I mean, like, a lot of that shit went down like months before those fires over there too. It was
Yeah,
like
exactly.
they knew, like, and like, they had models. They know, they watch the weather. You know what I mean? It's just like, hey, they have people doing calculations with machine learning. All that shit's getting better and better. So when it hits a certain threshold, they're like, look, this is not a risk we're willing to take. They have investors. They have employees. You know what I mean? They're going to do what's best for there. And then there's another person that'll come in and is more willing to take that risk. But, I don't know where the investment angle is there, to be honest.
Well, I mean, there's always an angle there in terms of how to respond to to disasters. We've played Generac, the generator company,
right.
multiple times, made a lot of money on that one. It's so easy. Just hurricane season starts coming around. Usually Generac, historically has been maybe 20-30% lower than where it is after hurricane season. You just go in right before hurricane season, buy a few shares, and then after that, sell it, make quick 30-40%. But in terms of, are there opportunities available for those who want to invest in high risk areas where maybe you can't get a mortgage or insurance? And I guess that's the question. I don't have the answer to that question, which is why.
Well, of course. I mean, look. What's one of the oldest adages about investing? Buy when there's blood in the streets.
Yeah.
Or crisis equals opportunity. Right now along the Gulf of America coast where the hurricanes hit, they're rebuilding. It's a building boom right now, and I would imagine that LA is going to undergo the exact same thing. It's going to be a massive construction site. So, and that just plays into the whole commodities thing. Trump talked about turning Gaza into the next Riviera. I don't know if that's going to happen or not, but I do know this: Gaza has to be rebuilt, and it depends on who rebuilds it. Who knows? But that's going to be natural resource intensive, rebuilding that region. So
yeah, for sure. Well, we've been down this road before. There's always opportunity in rebuilding, whether it's energy infrastructure, construction, materials, what have you. And it's interesting what you said, Brian, about the what did you say we call them, the vulture buyers?
Vulture capitalists.
Vulture capitalists. That's a very good point, right? So clearly, there's always, as long as there's a market, someone's going to be there to profit. So maybe Powell's wrong. Maybe that he says it'll be hard, maybe it will be hard to get a mortgage, but there are plenty of people that can buy homes and property without a mortgage. And that's not new.
Yeah, well, and was Powell saying that because of just like, what was his reason for saying that? Like, because interest rates are going to be too high, because housing has just gotten too expensive? Like, what is the reason surrounding that?
I think he was trying to get some cheap beachfront property and was trying to drive the price down. Yeah. No, I really don't know. It's just something that it came up in one of his presentations to Congress.
Well, look, I mean, the financing on homes has changed. I mean, it used to be that mortgages weren't even a thing. And then they were only 10 years. So I don't know. Maybe there's a 40-year mortgage market. Like, maybe that becomes the standard. I think the market will respond.
You just have to price in the risk. That's all you have to do. And the Gulf of America coast where I am is still high in demand. It's still very, very desirable. We have Europeans coming in buying houses and property all the time. I would imagine that's going to be the same scenario for Los Angeles, where you probably can't get a mortgage, where it's too high risk, is like, say, East Baltimore. I'm not joking. I just saw a video on TikTok that went through some of the East Baltimore neighborhoods, which were, very highlighted on the HBO series The Wire, and that looks like a war zone. Like East Baltimore.
Always looked like a war zone.
What's that?
It's always looked like a war zone.
Right. And so I can't imagine what the mortgage rates are for buying houses there.
Yeah, the property's got to be super cheap. So, I
Sure.
mean, it's, I think the expectation of everyone has been wildly outrageous, right? The average size of a new home has gone up over the last 30 years. All the amenities you get with it, like all of that, and people just think that, like, oh, like I should be owed this, particularly lifestyle, or I don't want to live in East Baltimore. It's like, well, maybe you have to. Maybe you have to when you first start out.
Well, yeah, when you first start out, my first starter home was $50,000. That's the price of my car right now. So But that was in what 1995. I bought my first house.
That was a great house.
What's that?
That was a great house.
It was. Yeah, it was.
Oh, you don't think so? You didn't like it?
Oh no, it was great. I mean, but you know, it's funny how when you start to buy up and you go back to the old house, you're like, man, how did I actually live in that house?
Right.
Where did I find parking? Parking was so hard to find, you know, on a city street.
Yeah.
So
Trials and tribulations, my friends. All right, guys. Thank you so much for joining us here today, and everyone watching and listening. Thanks for joining us. Until next time, take care of yourself.